This is the Build Out West podcast with your host Tony Hyde from Evolution House and Land Specialists and Catherine Smith from Build Bright Builder Brokers.
If you guys are looking to build in WA or simply curious to see what's going on in building, you guys are in the right place. We're here to give insight with professionals in the game, coming to give the inside scoop. Episodes are uploaded weekly, so don't worry, we don't skip a beat and you won't either. Like, share, subscribe, sit back, relax, and let's go.
Hello and welcome to the Build Out West podcast with your host Tony Hyde.
And Catherine Smith, good morning.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. How are we?
Thrilled to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Or good afternoon if you're listening to the podcast in the afternoon.
Yeah, you do you, listener.
Good evening, so to go to sleep. Either way, we're happy you're listening.
I don't know if they want to listen to us go to bed, to be fair.
Yeah, well, I don't know, mate. Put them to sleep.
Fair.
So, now,
what are we talking about?
we're talking about some hot suburbs, or a hot suburb that we think, or we know is going to be an absolute cracker in the future.
Yes.
I mentioned it a few times as well, but the suburb hotspot today we're going to discuss quickly is Gosnells,
Yes.
which is in the south again, probably going kind of east.
Southeast, yeah.
Yeah. Probably, 20 odd kilometres from the city.
Yeah.
Mm.
But because it's southeast, you tend to do, it's about 25-minute drive, I would say. The main street being Albany Highway to get there, yeah.
Main street.
The main mode of transportation to get into the city. Although there's a train line, so there's Gosnells train station as well. Yeah.
It's already built up, right?
It's an established area, but it's also, in terms of being established, it is more run down. So it's not a new estate, it's not a new suburb. It's just one that is now being really zoned in on, really looked at in sort of subdivisions and putting money back into the area, putting it up. And the council obviously backing it financially, putting a lot of things into sort of the local libraries and the roads and things like that.
Yeah, it's been kind of known the last few years, and I think it's starting to change from the low socio-economic sort of point of view.
Yes.
A lot of homes west or social housing in those areas, they're starting to disappear.
Yeah.
Starting to get bought by private investors, councils are selling them on to move them into the new estates and all this kind of thing. But again, that's where we're seeing, and living in WA, people talk about God knows about those kind of points, but there is so much potential. We've seen suburbs that have that kind of name, so what
Yes.
I say, have now been turned around. Your Balgas and things like that have turned over because they're so close to the city. They're real estate's prime for what we're doing now. So
Yeah, I would say like the perception of Gosnells 5 years ago to now,
it's
different,
massively
very different. And I'll be interesting when we touch base in 5 years' time, how the perception is going to change, But I think a key point is the local and the state government are putting money behind Gosnells in terms of redeveloping it and infrastructure. And it's now completely changed the energy there, if you know what I mean.
Things have got in there. They're going from talking about the blocks.
Yes.
All the blocks are massive out there. They're all like 800 plus blocks.
Yeah, 1,000 square meters is the norm there.
Yeah, really big. The good thing is they're all subdividable now. You can. The only downside on that is most houses are built right in the middle of the block.
Yes.
So they are going to be mostly a knockdown. But when you see how old those houses are, you probably, for an investor, you'd want to be knocking down, subdividing and building 2, 3 or whatever you can.
Correct, yeah. I find a lot of the investors are sort of the land bankers where they'll buy a big block with an old 3x1 house on it.
Sure.
Rent it out, do the plans and all that, and then look at obviously subdividing it in the future. Yeah, that's very, very, very common. But also if you do the numbers, it actually makes sense to knock down that older house because then obviously you can fit more dwellings on there. So a lot of Gosnells, there are obviously different zones in Gosnells itself, but there's a lot of R60, which seems to be quite high for medium density in terms of where it's located. And that gives opportunities for investors to be able to do sort of even up to 10 apartments, or you could do sort of 6 townhouses or units, single units as well.
We're not saying that's what you should do. It's like they've got the opportunity. You will obviously have to do your feasibility and all that stuff.
Correct.
Please do that before you invest anywhere.
Yeah.
But it's definitely got the opportunity. This is why we're talking about it. The opportunity around there is phenomenal.
Yeah. So let's talk about some numbers there.
Yeah, okay.
So the median 4x2 there, you're looking at 487. Okay,
that's higher than I thought it was. Okay, that's good.
Well, it's under 500 grand. So if you think a 4x2 under 500 grand, I would say is very affordable, right?
You think of those suburbs we just done the podcast on a couple of weeks ago, or built to rent under 500k?
Yes. This one, 4x2 medium, it is slightly higher. That's because people obviously paying premium for those larger blocks because they can subdivide it, you know what I mean? But 487 is a medium 4x2 there. There's actually a decent population as well. There's about 21,000 people live in Gosnells, right? Yep. So everything's already established there. So the medical centre's there, you know, the local schools are there, the train station. Yeah, it's already there. It's already established. There's a large population, but it's now what's happening is people are getting the blocks and building on them to get. And what's actually quite nice is you having a lot of those new builds there. So it's making things are looking a lot more fresher, a little bit more like vamped up a little bit. So in terms of growth, it's actually had a huge growth. I think about 16% in the last 12 months Gosnells has had in building equity there. Last 2 years, it was about 28, 29%. Okay, so a huge shift. In terms of the surrounding suburbs, we have, I looked into it, was Champion Lakes. Their growth was only 11%. Huntingdale was also around there, again 11%. Maddington was 13%. So Gosnells seems to be sort of that standout suburb that's having that huge growth and almost double in the last 2 years compared to the ones surrounding that, you know, and the, sort of the points we touched on just now is sort of the reasons behind it, you know.
So it's almost like, is Gosnells going to become its own hub rather than Byford or something like that? Is that where that's where that's going to be, you know, like because it's already set up?
Yeah.
Hubs are always the most expensive and then they get a little bit cheaper as it.
I feel like almost that in that pocket, Gosnells is sort of the main suburb, right? And then the surrounding suburbs will get the benefit of the equity growth. Yeah. But maybe in 3 or 4 years' time, you know. Well, right now it's sort of like Gosnells is the main driver for that zone, if you will.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense, and it's a no-brainer. You know, the rental yield and stuff. I think you're going to go into it's crazy.
Yeah. So, also what's interesting is Gosnells has a huge rental market, almost higher than like the majority. Majority sort of sticking around 20% are renters. Gosnells is 30%, which means a huge percentage of people rent there. Mm-hmm. In saying that, build to rent is very much a popular concept with our clients as well there because they understand the demand for the rental market there. You know, in terms of the vacancy rate, of course, it's quite low. It's 0.4 or 0.5% in vacancy rate. So there's not a lot of stock on the market, but there's a lot of population that do rent. Build to rent is very big there because if people want to rent, the opportunity is very extreme. You can either get a new build, right, which has all the bells and whistles of a 3x2 or whatever, or it's very much a very old established home, which has a bigger block, but it's a lot older, it's a lot more run down because Gosnells is that sort of established suburb. So what happens is the renter, of course, wants the low maintenance new build over an older house, particularly because they know land developers obviously bought the property and they're going to have to leave in a year's time once they've done all their paperwork to subdivide it. Right. So that's what I'm finding is basically someone has built a house in Gosnells and there's already people lining up to rent it out purely because they want that longer term rental, but they want their new builds, you know what I mean? Especially the youngers under 30 crowd, you know?
From the number you're saying, you can definitely see that why we keep harping on about Gosnells, it's the infrastructure's there, the community's there.
Yeah.
The community's there. So the schools there, everyone's established. When you're walking into it, it's already, it's not like a brand new estate. You got to find your way. It's already set up for you.
Yes.
And it makes perfect sense for that thing. And we've spoken, I won't go into it again, but we spoke about that southeastern corridor.
Yeah.
And the amount of infrastructure to connect down there is huge. And Gosnells in that area is a really good space to connect.
Yeah, and I think because it is established, it's not like, say, a Baldivis or a Ganget, where it's almost like a new place to be. What's happening is you're getting now the generation that were raised in Gosnells, right? And they want to stay there, you know? And that's why that rental market is so high because that's where all their friends are, that's where all their family is, and they have that, I guess, connection to the suburb where those newer booming areas don't have it as much as Gosnells does, you know? So that's an interesting point, and I think that's why the drive for the rental market is quite significant there. It's because you have people that have always lived there, but they just don't want to live with mum now. They want their own space, you know?
There's a real intimate mix there, isn't there, of the old school people staying there and the newer want to live in, but the newer crowd want the newer houses. and we're hearing rumours, we're not sure whether that's happening, of a couple of new estates in the Gosnells really attached to Gosnells.
Land estates.
Land estates coming up.
Yeah.
Which will then be, I think, will provide a real beautiful blend of mix of the new estates, the old, and just bringing it all together to be like, this is exactly what it's meant to be, and it'll tart it up.
Yeah, I agree. Like, obviously we're in the know with a lot of the land developers, and when they're buying huge volume of land
and in a suburb, these aren't small estates, these are significant estates.
Yeah, you know, they're putting money behind it. Those ones are going to go very quickly. You can imagine, because it's sort of, and this is how I very much will see it, is the son lived and raised in Gosnells, and now there's an opportunity to build a new build in Gosnells in the estate down the road from mum and dad. He's going to take that opportunity, of course, you know, because it's pretty much the same price as the established market. Yep. But you have that new bells and whistles house, and he can build it whatever he wants, you know.
I think exactly that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah,
and getting into that rental market, being what's what we're looking for, being still tagged with that low social economic sort of thing, and I know we'll still be there for a few more years.
Yeah,
it's just the community that's in there. I think this is going to work really well. Rental market, building new houses, it's all going to work really well. We just need these land developers to come in and go, we're in.
Yeah.
No, they're super close.
Yeah, they are close. And to be fair, the Gosnells Council are actually very fair to work with as well. So I've done a few subdivisions there. I actually did have a property myself there. So I put my money where my mouth is for Gosnells. So I had a 1,000 square metre block there in Gosnells on Terrence Street. R60 zoning, and then we subdivided and sold that, and they sold quick.
Yep.
They sold quick, as you can imagine. But once things are subdivided, things are done properly, they move very quickly. You know.
On that note about selling quickly as well, I was sitting there with a real estate agent the other week. Then we're talking about, there's less than 6,000 properties on the market. 6,000 properties, which is not a lot. And half of them are like, if they're even on for longer than, I think the longest listing date is like 9 days, and the stuff that's staying there is the horrible bits of land, and they're under
or overpriced or whatever. Yeah, something's wrong with it. Red flaggy.
So, yeah, definitely. And there's all these people moving in, and there's no stock. It's like there's only one thing we can do, that's build.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to say to you, the listeners, and especially investors, even mum and dad investors. If you can do it, come and speak to us and look to invest in these areas, because you will get.
Like rent to build in Gosnells is very smart or ideal if you have a spare 500 grand. But, and I think they're doing it right, is they're actually putting a cap on how many investors will be able to do in each land estate in Gosnells, right? So that's one of the requirements there. They're basically saying they want 80% sort of live-in residential buyers, and then 20% being investors. And that's to prevent sort of those ghetto shanty towns and things like that. It's just to also give people opportunity that they can live in the suburb that they want without having to rent. They can actually build to buy or to live, but then you have the build to rent market, but it will be very sparse. Yeah.
Yeah, the government have come out and said, and we spoke to these people saying, we can't keep having investors buying all the land and just rent out, then there's nowhere for anyone to build and build their own house to live in. So I think that's a really smart decision. Happy to help with that stuff.
Now, in terms of like what we've talked about is the demand to rent being so high, the one thing for investors to look at, of course, is the rental yield, which is 6% median. Most are not as high as that, 6%, and then having a long-term rental, 30% people live in Gosnells are renters. It is such a no-brainer in terms of stats, why it's such a hotspot for people at the moment.
What I think, though, and being completely upfront and honest, I think what you'll see is that the rental yields there is going to drop a little bit as we start getting more investors, but it'll go back up once the median house price starts picking up.
Yeah.
So the long-term investors, this is where you switch on, I'll get 6%. It might drop to 4%, but it'll come back up in a few years once we establish all that market again. It feels like a risk. I don't think it is. It's just, if you're investing in real estate, it's a long-term game. These people that think they get a return within a year and stuff like that. Guys, your tax will eat most of that up as well. So do the long-term investment and do it and set and forget.
So in a nutshell, if we're looking to look at a hotspot, Gosnells is one, purely for the rental return, the demand for rentals, the build to rent sort of schemes available there, the land available there in terms of development, and also the equity growth of 29% in the last 2 years. So it's just very hot, but also very safe in a way.
And it's going to be a sought after area because of location of where it sits, right? It's in a close to the city, it sits in its own little pocket, but it's close to everything. So
Yeah.
people are very loyal to that area, and we'll see more of that.
Alrighty.
I think that's us for the day, isn't it?
I love Gosnells.
Right.
For my money where my mouth is. All right.
All right, well, again, guys, we really want you all to jump on there, especially the YouTube channel, subscribe for us, comment, like, and share. And please reach out to us through the website or through the socials if you get any questions or anything you want to hear about. We're happy to talk about any topic. So thanks very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.